welcome to Inspiring Small Business Stories podcast. I'm Dr. Chris Milkey. I'm the CEO and doctor in Milwaukee Foot and Ankle Specialist. We have 4 locations in the area, and I'm fascinated by small businesses. My dad ran a small business. I've been running a small business for 28 years, and I just thought it was really important to tell our story because I really believe that small businesses are the heart and soul of any town. And certainly here in the Milwaukee area, there's so many wonderful small businesses, and I get the opportunity to meet with them and interview them and really have them tell me and us their story. So today I have Patrick Barron from Fastback Physical Therapy, and we've got a little history together. Patrick came to me back several months ago and asked if we wanted to share space. And several months later, we've got 2 offices in New Berlin, and I'll let Patrick tell a little bit more about that. But we're side by side. It's been a good relationship, and he's a great physical therapist, and things are going well there. So welcome to the podcast, Patrick.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. So first of all, Fastback. So tell me about the name. I love names. Where's the origin of that name?
So when you come up with the name of a company, at first it's all goofy stuff. Like I wanted something that would stand out a little bit, but the first ideas I had were really pretty goofy. And then ultimately, where it came from was it honestly came partially from the Ford Mustang.
Oh, interesting.
It seems odd, but it's if you look back at the history of the Mustang, I don't remember what year it came out, but the part about it that was so cool was that it was a power car that was delivered to the masses. So you could get something that was stock, but it was just ready to rip.
Right.
And so and it just didn't break the bank. So you had all these people that could access a really cool car that was really fun to drive and had great performance, and it was it stood up against things that were much more expensive at the time, where that you'd have to build custom or something like that. And but it's it's kind of a double entendre beyond that, in that part of my company's mantra is speed, and I want to be able to get things done quickly.
Sure.
With insurance things, we don't always have as much time as we used to, so we have to be able to get things done, but we can't just do a 2-week program of therapy. That doesn't work. So I had to figure out something where we're able to do less visits, and then still get the great results. And then finally, the back part, Fast Back. One of the things I focus on is spine care. So back, that's part of the name, but then also getting back. And I really believe strongly that it's important to get people back to what they used to do so they don't lose that part of their life.
Cool. Yeah. So do you have a Mustang? Did you have a
No.
Mustang?
No,
do you want a Mustang?
Do you have one that you're looking to unload? No, I have my friend Brad, who's a therapist and has helped me with a lot of different things. I've got a model one this big sitting in the clinic.
Cool.
At some point, I'd love to be able to pick up a used one at a car show somewhere.
Sure. So at some point, obviously, you took the leap of faith to be a small business owner. You had been working for other companies. I know a little bit about your story. So tell me the origin of finally making that decision, because it all comes down to a decision one day, just saying, you know what, I'm going to go for this. So tell me about yours.
Well, you started just by kind of sharing that, your dad was a small business owner, so was mine. So my dad was a home builder. So I grew up a carpenter, going weekends, summers, spending time building houses, and just watching what he did, the pride he had in his work, and then having the word of mouth. He never had to market because people would always come to him, and being able to do that and do what he wanted to do, and then the things that I learned from him because he was a business owner was different than just a regular job. So I knew I always wanted to run my own business because I had these ideas, and when you own the idea, you can implement it way better. If you're if you're an employee and you got to go to your boss and get it approved, or even if you have a partner and they don't quite agree with some of your ideas, it's always a little bit diluted. So I just wanted to be able to do the thing that I'm passionate about and just do it all the way.
Sure. So you're going up against the Goliaths like Aurora and Ascension and Pro Healthcare and Freighter and all that. So doing that nowadays it can really be daunting.
Yeah.
So what was your thought process about that particular part?
Well, the thought process can be a bit challenging and even demoralizing, because before I decided to open, all that was on my mind. Because when I've been a PT for this is my 20th year being a therapist. Things have changed a ton in 20 years. Before, if you were known as a great therapist, that's all it took, and people would send you all over the place. But now, even if I have a patient with a great reputation and I get an order for therapy, they'll come in, but that person's already being called by the hospital therapy clinic to come in, even though I sent the person in to get the order. So it's really tricky to be able to establish yourself amongst as like David against Goliath. Well, before I decided to actually make the shift and move, what I kind of realized is that there's always an opportunity when there's from a consumer standpoint, there needs to be choices, and the less choices that there are, you're kind of shoved into whatever's left.
Sure.
And so I think that the real opportunity when you look at the huge, the Auroras and Freighterts and all that, which they do great quality care, but they don't have to get down to the micro level of the specific needs of that one person that you can do something for that a larger corporation just is not going to be able to handle. So I went in with the attitude that, okay, well, I think that there's this donut hole of healthcare. Everyone's kind of familiar if they've got a deductible and they've got this donut hole they got to get out of before things are covered. When you're inside that donut hole, you make choices that are different when you're out of the donut hole. So I think that just the fact of healthcare itself, if you've got restrictions and barriers, you're going to make choices differently. That's where I focus. I try to catch people that have a need and they're not having that need served because of barriers such as cost.
Yeah, absolutely. So physical therapy, most people kind of know what a physical therapist does, what your products and services are. I know you do something unique with Parkinson's patients, so tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I had a couple of great patients. One of them in particular, his name was Chuck, and was treating him as a physical therapy patient for Parkinson's. And we were trying to do things not just during the therapy. The therapy was going fine. We got great improvements, but then we'd stop therapy. And then 6 months later or a year later, he'd come back. And Parkinson's is a progressive disorder, but things would kind of get away from him that weren't just because of the Parkinson's. It was because he wasn't doing therapy. Well, you can't do therapy year round. It doesn't work. It's just cost prohibitive. It's just not a good model. So he would do a couple of different classes, and they were great for him. But I went to meet Dr. Taylor Finseth, and he asked me if I did rock steady boxing, and I had no idea what it was. So I looked it up, and it's a boxing class for people with Parkinson's. It's exclusively for Parkinson's. So I ran that by this patient Chuck, and he was all about it. And where I was at the time, working where I was at, we weren't able to do it there. But as things started to change, and I saw this opportunity where I was going to be open my own clinic, I basically designed the clinic to be able to do rock steady boxing and other classes. But that was really the idea. And so what rock steady boxing is it's high intensity dynamic movement. It works great for Parkinson's because for Parkinson's the thought will occur of a movement that wants to be performed, but then there's a delay. And so if you want to do an exercise, a stretch where you move, you get to plan that out in your mind, and you can take as long as you want to do that movement. With boxing, you got to move fast, quick. There's no time for that cognitive process. You just have to react. And something special happens when they put the gloves on and start hitting. They let some frustration out. They don't hit each other. They just hit their focus mitts or the bags or the speed bag. So it works great for hand-eye coordination. Works great for just getting them to move quickly without really thinking about it. And the results, it just gives them something to do in between things like therapy or other forms of medical management they can do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's cool. You should let each one of your patients hit you just once. It'd be kind of cool just to one smack in the face.
They ask every time.
Can I hit you just one time? Maybe when you see your bill or something.
Yeah, right.
Can I come in and just
get
you?
Yeah.
They got to have a glove on though, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you got to have a little bit of headgear on.
I haven't ordered the headgear yet, but I'll do that just so they can take a shot.
You might need to walk around the clinic with the headgear on, especially if they're coming in with their bill in their hand, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So do you have an ideal patient? We call patients customers, clients, patients. Obviously in our business it's patients. I love treating plantar fasciitis. I love treating people who come in who have pain somewhere in their foot, and I know I can get it better pretty fast and have them, we say they limp in but they dance out.
Nice.
I absolutely love that. Is there something, I'm sure you love treating a lot of things, you get a lot of people better, but is there somebody that you just really love to treat? Some condition or whatever?
As a therapist for as many years as I've been, I love that same, what you're just talking about when somebody comes in and they walk out feeling great. That's always been the thing, but more recently the Parkinson stuff, it's just that group, it's just such a tight-knit group, and it's such a good feeling when you're done, just that you've accomplished something. So that's my favorite part of my job right now. But you know, whenever I can get a person to learn something, that's really from a physical therapy aspect. That's kind of my ideal outcome, is that they leave knowing something that they didn't know when they came in.
Yeah, excellent, cool. So differentiation. So I always think about how can we differentiate ourselves from the big Goliaths, the big healthcare systems. How do you think about differentiating yourself? There's a lot of physical therapists
Oh,
around
yeah.
in every town, and obviously I know Milwaukee. There's a
Yeah.
ton. So what makes Fastback Physical Therapy and Patrick Barron different from other companies?
It's a good question, and if you start by the notion that there are a lot of therapists and a lot of great therapists, so and that first thing is that I want to promote that people use physical therapy. If you got a great therapist, use that great therapist. If you're not, if your answers aren't coming the way that you think they should, then you need to look for something else, and that kind of leads into the differentiation. So I believe that I am a great therapist just because the results that I get, the people that return. But that's not so much a differentiation anymore because there's a lot of great therapists. So my company slogan is restoring life above pain with lower cost and less time. And those two parts in the slogan really explain how I differentiate. So the first part, restoring life above pain, that's different than if you come in and let's say that you have a tight hip flexor. So you're going to get a hip flexor stretch. And you're going to have the therapist probably tell you, well, you're weak in this area, the back of your hip is weak or your core is weak. That's great, and that's something that should be done. But the differentiation is understanding that that hip flexor is tight for a reason. In that example, every single time there's a tight hip flexor, there's a core imbalance or a core weakness that the hip flexor is filling in for. And so for like that type of thing, I call that a false core. And so the hip flexor is tight because it's being used as a core muscle, because it is a core muscle, but it's not the right core muscle for all situations. So that person that has a tight hip flexor, they can't run, they can't even walk, they get up out of a car and they can't stand up straight. So I'm not just going to stretch it and show you how to strengthen other things, but I'm going to teach you the reason why it's tight. It's tight out of a certain necessity. And so we find that necessity of why it's tight in the first place, reprogram the situation so that you use a different area of your body. So that's the first half, is actually finding something that is meaningful and changing your life because of it. The second half, the lower cost and less time, that's a huge differentiation right now. Everybody walks in with a $40 copay now or a high deductible. And when you go, if we just compare to the hospital system, you walk into the hospital therapy clinic and you've got a high deductible, you're going to walk out with a $200, $300 bill every time you go in. And that's a big chunk of money that you have to consider in whether or not you go back again. And so what's going to happen is once you see those bills coming in, you're going to start asking to end sooner. And that doesn't mean that your program's been accomplished. So the lower cost and less time, what I'm trying to do there is give an option for people that don't, they have to consider their finance and they've got a healthcare budget. And I think it's not a normal thing for people to walk in and discuss with their medical care provider budget.
Sure.
And the conversation is often, well, I can't do that. Well, this is the price. I can't do that. So what I do is I offer different programs that will fit any budget, and then that way, what I try to do is program their care to fit within that budget, as opposed to saying, okay, you have this much money, we can go this long, and then you'll run out. I think that's really cost ineffective.
Sure.
What I'd rather say is, you have this much money. How do we span out this many visits? And that much budget, and I think that the end result is a better result with a person that is financially less stressed.
Yeah, totally. And transparency in the healthcare industry when it comes to cost is going to become more of a thing.
Yeah.
Trump is trying to do that. President Trump is trying to do that.
Yeah.
With companies, hospitals, like having their fees literally be on their website so people know that.
Yeah.
So you're already kind of moving in that direction. That's totally a differentiator because in healthcare right now, nobody really knows what they're paying.
Yeah, and
until they get the bill or they have the copay or whatever they have to do.
And that actually brings up one of my ideas, like your own podcast. I wanted to do a podcast at one point on this topic, and the acronym I came up with that is Testing Answers, Treatment Results, TATER. And the whole thing about that is that with the costs not being transparent, and a huge chunk of those costs are in the testing side of things. And so if you look at where the resources are placed, it's in testing. You go into the hospital, it's testing, testing, testing. Of course, you need testing. But if you don't have somebody really skilled on the other side of the table that says, well, we got this one test, it looks like this is the problem, we should have you try this treatment. And oftentimes the cost of that treatment that's going to be effective is less than the whole sum of all the different tests that could be run when you're not having any treatment at all.
Sure.
And so I think that if in terms of cost transparency, where are you putting those costs? Is it all in tests that don't make you feel any better? Being like you mentioned, we're neighbors. One thing I love when I send a patient over to you guys is that when they go over there, I've got one great story actually, but when they go over there, they don't come back and they say, oh yeah, they said that I need to get this test done and that test, and I'm going to go back in 6 weeks and find out. They come back and they say right away, oh, they told me this, and they did that.
Right.
I had one patient in particular that she had already been to 3 podiatrists, and she was having this wound on her toe, and was just being treated as a toe wound. She went over to you guys, and she was told right away, you have to have this taken care of for such and such reason. She ended up having to have a bypass because she had a blockage that was missed by 3 separate doctors.
Wow.
And so those types of things all lead into what you're paying money for. Is it all tests and you're not actually doing something, or is it something that's actually meaningful in your life?
Sure. Yeah, that's what's great about what we do is people can walk in, we can take an x-ray, and they're often like shocked. You can actually do this right now, give me a diagnosis right now. I don't have to come back in 2 weeks. I don't have to go to a big hospital system and worry about parking and all of that and then come back again. No, we'll diagnose you right here. And that patient actually, she could have not only lost her toe, she could have lost her foot, she could have lost her leg.
Yeah.
So yes, specifics like that. That's great that, well, first of all, you saw the need and then the diagnosis was made right there on the spot. So switching gears a little bit from the clinical side, so tell me what you're most proud of in your career.
Well, I always love it, like we do. I mean, you try not to get a big head, but you love it when people come back and they're just so happy with what you've done. So I really try not to have that the focus. But when people return though, because they're asking for the same thing again, but now for a different problem, that's just as special, I think, where it recognizes that something happened that was pretty cool, and then they'd like to get that same thing again. And then even now with my son, we're out somewhere and somebody talks about they've got a headache or they're limping and they're like, Dad, can you go fix them? And it's just that notion of just being a resource that can handle something.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Yep. Is there one big business challenge in your short career as being a business owner that you've had to overcome?
I think that it really is the hospitals being the big box of healthcare. And going back to that original question of deciding whether or not to have a business, it's so important to have options and choices. And the more centralized things get, the less options and choices that you have. And so just taking that leap of faith and getting out there was really the biggest challenge. But from an insurance perspective, it was tricky because, right out the gate, I'm a startup physical therapy clinic. So I had to first enroll in the Medicare, and that's 2-3 months, and after that, all the other insurances. So we opened our doors in January. I didn't get my final insurance until July, where now I'm in network with pretty much everybody. It's really hard to operate a business when you can't accept, but that's just part of the game, and I knew that going in. And now that we're over that, and then we're just ready to roll.
Right. So I'm a little surprised that you didn't say marketing was the number one thing, because marketing is typically one of the number one things for small businesses. I've heard you talk about some of the things you're doing from a marketing perspective. And you mentioned your dad being in business, my dad being in business. There was a time where you build it and they would come. Yeah. Obviously, it's not that in healthcare anymore. Right. So what are you doing to bring patients into the practice?
Yeah, so the marketing is, of course, something you think about every day, because how do you make yourself known? Making good works known is not easy, because it just falls upon dead ears. You can go somewhere and show a great result, but it doesn't fall within the system, so therefore you're not going to get that. Before all the insurances fell in line, just the fact that people would find me was how I would do it, that word of mouth referral. And so having a culture that creates word of mouth referral, that's more important than anything else. But to go a step beyond that, I believe that I've got an alternative for patients that do have hospital-based physicians, because if they do get referred to the hospital-based physical therapy clinic, because they're affiliated, they're going to have that exorbitant cost. And so from a marketing perspective, I believe that I can get some referrals for patients that just flat out can't afford it. But beyond that, the other way that I would say that marketing is going to work for me is community-based. So when we designed the space, you and I sat down and we had a number of meetings on the physical space. And inside the clinic that we have, there's a seminar room. And so right now, one of the things we do is we hold a monthly support group, and it happens to be for Parkinson's, but we also have done a chronic pain group there. And so offering services that people come in where it's true heartfelt things to try to improve the quality of their lives will, I think, bring people just into the business. And what I hope is that just by becoming acquainted with us when they have the need, then they'll follow through and take the service. I want to do things. I've got a kitchen in the clinic, so we could do like a healthy cooking class. The other thing from a marketing perspective is I want to differentiate our company as what's known as a lifestyle medicine facility. And when you go, because the span of an episode of care in healthcare is getting shorter and shorter, like let's take a knee replacement surgery. That used to be like whatever, a 2 or 3 day stay, and now it's less than 24 hours. The reason is that the longer you're in the system, the more it's going to cost. So as an alternative, what we want to do is we want to create these options outside of the proper medical facilities, and lifestyle medicine is one of the best ways to do that. So I'd like to be able to network with more professionals that are really have a vested interest in health and fitness, and then offer things that are not like traditional medical, but things that keep them moving and wellness that is different than traditional medical management.
That's awesome. You know what I love about small business is speed.
Yeah.
Being able to do things
Right.
that you can't do if you're in a big business or you have, shareholders that are making decisions for you. There's a lot
Right.
of bureaucracy in that. So you talked about a number of things that you want to, like innovations, right? You can speed to do that. We just
Yeah.
brought a brand new laser into our business, and it was just a decision in the moment of, this is what we want. I know it works. This is something our patients will benefit from. I didn't have to go through a bunch of layers of management to decide.
Right.
I'm the owner. I can make the decision, and we make it work. And the things you're doing to innovate are really awesome, because the bottom line, it's going to help more people.
Right.
And you're going to keep the cost down because you've got a great fee structure. So that's really awesome. So besides Inspiring Small Business Stories podcast being your favorite,
Of course.
are there other podcasts or books or something that you've read, something that you like?
Prior to opening my own place, I was working up in Brown Deer, so from Waukesha it was quite a hike. So I really do like podcasts, but because you just get this perspective that you won't get on your own. But the thing that I like even better than podcasts from a business like development sense is conferences and things where you're networking with other people that have done the same thing. So one of my favorite places, honestly, to go is my church. I go to Fox River Church in Waukesha. And they're one of the sites of this business summit called the Global Leadership Summit.
Neat.
And I've gone 2 years in a row, and you've done business, conferences and things like that. And the whole thing about it, it's not always the material you get; it's the people that you meet.
Absolutely.
And so, for this most recent one, there were just a number of books that I picked up, and then also people that I talked to, and being able to go forward with more the mentality that you're going to have a positive impact on the community as a business owner. You're not there. Of course, your service is there, and it's an important service, but to be an integral part of the community where you're really trying to enrich the lives of the people that are around you and coming in. I think that's the message that I like to try to get from things like that.
That's great. Yeah, just constantly learning, right?
Right.
There's always something new to learn for
Yeah.
business and just life in general,
Right.
right? Just people skills. Yeah. So, is there a particular business tip that you can give to small business owners, somebody who might be struggling, or somebody who's trying to make a decision to take that leap of faith and go out there? Something that you've kind of learned that, like, I really want other people to know this.
It's you can't second guess yourself when you've got something that works and you've proven that it works because of the outcomes that you get. When you start second guessing because you're going against Goliath, you're gonna now, if you don't go and take that leap of faith and promote that aspect of your business that differentiates you, you're going to end up not being there anymore because you're not offering anything different. So I think the temptation is to try to fall in line and do what everybody else is doing. But I think just taking that niche that you have, even if it's the same service as somebody else, but you've got a niche within that, that's what sets a small business apart, and that's why small businesses are great, and we need to keep them around.
Yeah, that's great. So gut, right? Like
Yeah.
just intuition, like
Right.
just knowing down here, because other people can say it's not going to work, it's too risky, all
Right.
those things. But if you just know it, you know it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So what's next for you? You talked about some things that you want to innovate. Like, is there one thing in particular, like, this is what I really want to focus on and make it the next thing for my business?
Well, my experience with Rocksteady Boxing has just been so great. I'd love to be able to do some other things similar, not necessarily an exercise class, but I would really like to affiliate with some types of health fitness based groups that work out of our location just to continue that aspect of lifestyle medicine. So I think the physical therapy thing I've got down. I know how to do that. Marketing my brand and what we do, that's of course on the table. But the step that I'd like to go beyond that is really just getting some more community involvement and finding some things that are relevant and that work in a cycle. I don't want it to be the kind of thing where, oh, there's this talk over here, I'm going to go and learn a little information. Because what happens is you go and you get a little tidbit of information and you leave, and you might implement it, but a lot of times it's just a good idea that falls short. So if I can bring in something that has a regular occurrence with a cycle that happens, then you can take that tidbit, and the next time you add another tidbit, and pretty soon you actually have a change, and you also have a smaller community within the community, and that's where I think the most opportunity to actually improve things is.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it seems like when you make a decision to do something, you go for it. Because when you came to me and said there's this 3,000 square foot space,
Yeah.
This is what we should do. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And we went for it.
Yeah, in pretty
you
short order
took me
too.
along for the ride, so
Yeah.
it was good. Yeah,
And
that happened fast.
And I'm just thrilled that the way it was in my mind, that's the way it turned out. And we were a little concerned about the layout, making sure that things could fit, but the flow is great, and that's the way things go. And
Yeah, you know what I love? Collaboration. In small business, it's so great to collaborate with other small business owners because two of us can do more than one,
Yeah.
and 1+1 oftentimes can equal 3 rather than 2,
Right, right.
So that's how it happened for us. That's great. So one of my favorite parts of this, I'm a foodie, so
Okay.
I love asking rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Favorite Milwaukee area restaurant.
I'd have to say Bel Air. I love a good fish taco with margarita.
That's awesome. So we have a new doctor in our practice, and she sent me a text the other night. What's your favorite Mexican place in the area? And I said, Bel Air's great
Yeah.
for tacos. She went that night, and she said it was fantastic.
And the chips and
So-
salsa,
they're so
beforehand,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. Favorite beer?
So I'm actually I try to adhere to a gluten-free diet, and that includes beer.
Okay.
And so New Belgium makes a great one though. It's called Gluteny.
Oh, gluteny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That's
So it's
interesting.
actually a really good pale ale. Like I love a good IPA.
Okay, excellent. Milwaukee Festival.
Yeah, it used to be Summerfest, but not so much anymore. I love music. I almost
You're
like.
trying to show your age here? Is that
I
the deal?
know. Right. So rather than go and deal with the crowds, I'd probably say I like zoo a la carte. Go
Okay.
and sample some stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. See the animals
Yeah,
walk
right.
around. Kind of a casual day.
Yeah.
Less people typically,
Right.
so it's pretty good.
Right.
How about, do you like custard? I know
Yeah.
gluten. Can you do custard?
Oh yeah, I can do custards. I like Culver's, but so like a chocolate custard. So my favorite would be like a chocolate Culver's with chocolate banana split.
Okay, you probably have one a year. You're in such darn good shape.
Yeah,
so.
well, I don't
Must
know.
be all the working out.
That might
Maybe
be
it's
it.
dodging all those punches.
That's
that,
what it is.
patients
Well, you
are
know
giving
what?
you, right?
I burn a lot of calories catching punches.
I could.
Yeah. So I have 4 classes a
You have
week.
strong
That's-
hands, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, cool. How about pizza? There's gluten-free pizza,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Like Mod Pizza.
Okay.
Mod and Blaze both. They both do a good gluten-free. In New Berlin, there's a Mod Pizza real close by, so they're super fast and they make a great salad too.
Okay. I don't think I revealed my favorite pizza yet.
Are you
I'm
going
keeping
to?
it a secret because I'm going to probably try to have them on as a guest. So
Okay.
that's when I can do that.
Okay.
So
Do you have a
not yet.
second favorite pizza?
I would probably say I like Calderone and I also like Balestreri's.
Okay.
So those two are high on the list, but I have one that's even higher than that.
All right.
So at some point I'll reveal. Stay tuned. That's coming. So how about I'm a big fan of bakery. I love donuts. I actually got some donuts this morning. So I don't know with gluten if you have gluten-free
Yeah.
donuts, but I
Oh,
don't know how
they're-
great they
they're
would
horrible.
be.
They're horrible.
Yeah, I'm sure they. I've heard gluten-free bread is like really bad. Like they're trying to make it better, but it's not great right
Yeah,
now.
a lot of it is really bad. So like grains in general, I try to stay away. The whole thing behind the gluten is that it makes me foggy. Like people are familiar with the term carb coma.
Mm-hmm.
After lunch every day, that's what I had, but would last for 3 hours. And so honestly, I just try to avoid bakery and grains in general. But so that's my answer there.
Okay, excellent, great. So moving on, what does success mean to you?
I think that when we go back to what we were talking about before, where you got that gut instinct of something that you want to do, having that intestinal fortitude to actually carry it through and then you work through the bumps and bruises, and on the other side, maybe it's not exactly the way it looked in your mind, but it's there and you did it. I think that's what success is, and for different people, it's different things. But I think that you should just have that mentality about, if you want to be successful, make a decision and have some resolve, and then just do it.
Just go for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to make. You mentioned decision. Like, decision is everything. Until you make that decision, you're still gonna. It's just gonna be a wish or a dream or a hope, or we all have those things. But it definitely takes intestinal fortitude to actually like do it. Right?
Yeah, in our times now, things happen so quickly too. You can have that idea that you want to do, and all of a sudden it's something else is new, and that idea is gone. And then pretty soon you get into this repeating cycle of just wanting to do things and not doing them, and then it's repeated failures. And instead you just got to pick something simple, have a success with it, build on that success, and do it again.
Yep. So your location is in New Berlin. So tell the listeners, how to find you in terms of where you are, email, website, all those things.
Yeah, sure. So my website is fastbackpt.com. And the location we're at in New Berlin is on Sunny Slope and National, right next to Milwaukee Foot and Ankle Specialist. So it's 3333 South Sunny Slope Road. We're Suite 103B. And so the website's probably the easiest way to find us. Facebook, we're at Fastback PT. But I think that I'm open. I love conversations with people, especially people that are like, oh, I've got this thing. I don't really think I need to do something about it yet. That's always, that yet part is such a telling point, because what they're suggesting is they're going to get worse. I love getting people before it gets to that point.
Right.
So if there's that little inkling in your mind that, well, it's a little sore, I don't know if I need to do anything about it yet. Like, no, this is the optimal time to do something about it. It's going to cost you way less money, way less time if you get it taken care of now. So we do free consults. We also do free healthcare cost benefit analysis, where getting into that notion of, are you putting all your emphasis into a string of tests, or are you getting to an endpoint of testing?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So you mentioned culture earlier. I love your culture. I was in your clinic. We were having a conversation. Patient came in with spouse, and they just kind of walked right up to you like they were friends, family,
Absolutely.
and just have a conversation. It wasn't like they had to take a seat and wait for a receptionist to open the window or to greet them. It was like, just walk in and have a conversation and get started. It was like, just friends, family, whatever. That's great.
On that notion, like, one of the things is when you walk into my waiting room, it's an exercise room.
Right.
And so it doubles, and that's we had to be efficient. Again, small business, we had to be efficient with our space, so that waiting room doubles as an exercise room. So people walk in and they're used to just getting going, doing things. So that's a great feeling.
Right. So listeners, if you go to Fastback Physical Therapy, just be careful of those punches. They might be just coming out of the blue. So anyhow, fastbackpt.com. Patrick, Barron, thank you so much for being my guest, and another episode of Inspiring Small Business Stories. Congratulations on taking the leap of faith and having the success you've had for such a short time, and I'm sure better things to come for you in the future. So thank you for listening to Inspiring Small Business Stories, and we'll be back with our next podcast very soon.
Thanks a lot.